fashion statement that's happening, San Bono Donic. In our language, San Bono Donic means the place of the ribbons. So you would walk around that southern bend of the St. Joseph River, South Bend, Indiana, and there would be all of these beautiful places that has ribbons and cottons and satins and laces. And so that's our relationship with San Bono Donic and our ribbon county. We had a great relationship with the French. We showed them our riverways, we showed them how to use canoes. Who's ever been canoeing? Anybody been canoeing or kayak? You know who invented them? The Great Lakes peoples. A kayak is a small dugout canoe that we would have used so that we could go upstream and downstream. And in the wintertime, you know what we do with our dugouts? We put big rocks in it and it sinks and stays preserved in the water. And then we send you little guys down there, go get the rocks! Go get the rocks! Right? And they go and they get the rocks and the canoe goes bloop. And then the kids bring it back up to the shoreline. And that's how our community survived, as we worked together. We provided everything for each other. But the biggest thing that we did is we never let anything go to waste. So part of that 17 hours of work, you young ladies would have been gathering berries for 3 or 4 hours during the day, then processing the berries. Us men would have gone out and harvested the big game, but then the ladies would have to process the big game. How many here like to sew, ladies? Cross stitch, embroidery, crochet, right? It's really nice to go to Joanne, get our pretties, right? I love it. I got my cards and everything. I get my emails. I love my coupons. All right, I'm signed up at every one of them. All of this you see, Hobby Lobby, Michael's, Walmart, all of those things, right? So we've learned how to have commerce here. That makes a point. We never let anything go to waste, even to the extent of these. So when we needed string and thread and twine, we had natural materials like basswood, red oak, or dogbane, red dogbane, that we would make twine out of. But the really good stuff, the really good stuff is this stuff here on the back of my shield, the sinew. And sinew would come from the tendons and ligaments of buffalo and deer. And there was a really tough job, and I'm glad that I was born a man for this one only. It was the woman's responsibility to chew those tendons and ligaments, strip them, braid them, roll them, and provide us with twine for our canoes, for our bows, for our clothing. And I like beef jerky and all, right? I mean, but still, there's another process there. So I respect the French a lot because they brought us artificial sinew, waxed string. Again, a great idea of commerce. And when we talk about commerce, there's a really cool thing that happened that came over with the European. We got these really pretty things like these things here. These are beads. Go ahead and just touch them gently as I come around. Just feel the weight of them and how they feel and how they sparkle. Now there's a story about our beads. So in the United States of America, we had a bead that was called the wampum bead. And it was what our society used as a form of money. And we also used what was called the cowrie shell. Now the cowrie shell only comes from one place in the world, and that's the southern Cape Horn of Africa. It's what we call the mica shell. Now those have been found in our burials that are over 10,000 years old. So how did shells from Africa get way over here? Well, have anybody ever seen the sequoias and the redwood trees? Now imagine our maples and our beeches that size. They say that the yellow tulip is extinct. Well, it's not. It needs to be 300 years old after a poplar tree to become a yellow tulip. And we don't allow our trees to get that big anymore. Imagine the trees being as big as around as this room, and the boats that would have come from that. And from the boats, the world trade that we would have experienced. They also are finding mummies that are mummified with nicotine that are over 15,000 years old in Egypt. Now we understand seed distribution from birds, long time for that bird to hold that all the way over to Africa, because tobacco only comes from the North and South Americas, correct? We know that to be true. So how did that tobacco get way over there in Egypt 15,000 years ago? Again, world trade. United States of America is the only civilized nation today that does not create their own bead. Every other nation creates a bead because that was a form of money. Russia, China, all of the major powers of the world to this day still create their bead, because what had to happen in America was they had to eliminate wampum, which is our currency, and create the Federal Reserve, right? Those little green frog skins in our pockets, right? So they had to do away with. So wampum was even illegal for a while in America because it was against the Federal Trade Reserve. So this group of beads, there are 18 hanks of beads here. Retail value was $13.50 from John Beads in Ontario, Canada. 18 hanks of beads was what was used to purchase the state of New York. So this is what the state of New York cost. And remember that we didn't have the idea of ownership, right? We didn't of land ownership. If you were to go home and say, "I own you, Mom," how would Mom react? Probably not in a very good way, right? Since we've seen our mother as the earth, and our earth mother being that relationship, we had no possession, we had no dominion over that, and we actually had a symbiotic relationship, right? Just like the tree, it can't live unless we go, and we can't be in existence if it doesn't go. We breathe its exhale, and it breathes our exhale. More importantly, we need that inhale, right? So there's that symbiotic relationship. Same with fire, same with water. We need that. Fire purifies water. Water quenches fire. We need those things. Man, woman, positive, negative, all of those things that are in existence. Well, when all of that took place, we lost that form of currency. So we had to start to understand their form of currency. Now, our children at this age, whenever they would come and learn a hymnal, the Jesuits would give them 1 hank of beads. 1 hank is that amount of beads. Now remember, the state of New York was bought for 17 more of just this, right? So that was a lot to come learn a song. And kids, they can learn songs and languages real quick and easy, right? So there became this idea that, well, we'll break away the kids from the adults and the old traditional values by giving them beads, a new form of currency, a new form of reward. And so your allegiance and your alliance to the church was definitely shown in how much beadwork a Native American had. Because typically we would use moose hair, we would use porcupine quills, we would use wampum. How many go to Lake Michigan to find the Indian beads? Right? You still be able to find the Indian beads, right? Still? Right? We used those. Those were beads. And cedar seeds was another form of beads. Many other forms of religion even use our cedar beads for their iconomy also, because of the sacredness of those. Our clothes, again, we didn't use the whole animal, even our mittens. Any remnants of fur, these are how we would make our mittens. We would have an insert, right? So that if, I don't know about you, but my hands sweat and get all icky, and if I'm working, then this liner is what comes out to get clean, and then this doesn't get burned on the inside, right? So we had all these ideas, we had all these processes that we used. This basket here is from a tree called the black ash basket. When we make our baskets, we start weaving the community together. Our families are all together. And then our children grow and they make the sides of our basket. And as aunties and uncles come together and cousins and marriages form, and they're all wrapped together. So our baskets, even our functionary baskets, tell us a story about what it is and how we are to be. We are all baskets. We are all a vessel. What are you going to put in your vessel through your life? And that's where the adults come into, and that's where your prayers, everything comes into that vessel. You are sacred. You are to fill that vessel, and that's how we teach our children. That's why baskets among our people are very important, very metaphorical. We teach our children to make them at a very young age. My daughter made this one when she was 6 years old. She had to pound the tree. She had to use the knives. How many here let their 6-year-old use knives? Yeah, me too. I've had a knife since I was 6 years old, and I didn't even know I was supposed to. Within Native American culture and spirituality, young people and old alike are required to carry 2 things with them at all times. And both of them are illegal in mainstream society and school systems. We are to give our children and make sure that they have on them at all times a knife and a tobacco pouch, so that whenever they need to feed themselves or go across the waters, they would have their tobacco. You're not allowed to have tobacco in school, are you? Right? You can't carry a knife at school, can you? Geez, imagine the things that would happen if that happened, right? But these are religious rights that we're supposed to entitle our children with. And our young girls, you're supposed to have an awl and a knife so that you can darn clothes and so that you can cut food for your families. You're supposed to have those things too. But those are things that our young people can't have today, and wouldn't even necessarily be responsible enough to handle those objects, right? So again, when we think about how society was prior to European arrival, it was a way that had to be effective. So 300 young boys had to go out and do the fishing, right? And 300 young girls had to go out and do the berries. Because if not, especially here in the Great Lakes Basin, all those berries would go to waste. All those fish would go to waste. Remember, we have a symbiotic relationship with our creation. We're not just misusing the natural resources, especially here in the Great Lakes Basin, the Ohio River Valley, where we had every small game, every large game. The Kankakee even had cougars. We had woodland buffalo here prior to European arrival. Small woodland buffalo that was roaming around the Kankakee, and White Pigeon Prairie is known for its woodland buffalo herds. And so these are all the resources that have been given to us. Now, of course, as Native American people, we have had a long journey. We've had to overcome different depressions. But the best part about it is that at the end of the day, we get a chance to wear all of our honors and go out and dance and be a part of something greater than just ourselves. When we teach our children about dance, it's not just to be that showman. It's about natural rhythm of life and how the ebb and flow of creation works. It's about understanding who you are as a young man and as a young woman. What are you going to be when you grow up? Who is going to be there to help you? And who will you be to help somebody else later? All of these parts come with understanding all of these items that are here. When you hunt or you trap these items, or you understand the fragility of life, how important sacredness really is within creation. When you understand how clothes come together and that it's not just a fashion, man, I look good, but at the same time, there's a functionality to all of this. There's a reason why we wore these things. In the Great Lakes Basin, we have what's called the porcupine, right? The porcupine was an animal of great resiliency. If you touch the porcupine's little hairs, needles would shoot out, right? But not off of here, of course. This is the guard hair off of a porcupine and the white tail off of the deer. Of course, we dye it, but it's so soft, right? You'd think a porcupine was wowie. Oh my goodness, right? So this is one of our headpieces that was gifted to us by the Lakota people. The Lakota and the Comanche, the Arapaho, the Apache, all of those desert region areas. They don't have the trees that we have, and the waters that we have, and they don't have the small game, and they definitely have hotter temperatures than we do also. And so one of the things that one of the things that we look for creation is who in creation has natural shade, who in creation can protect themselves, because they were made by the Creator to do those types of responsibilities and duties, right? And so we looked at creation and we see, well, the porcupine has this really long hair, and that hair keeps them from being seen at times. You see how brown the tips are, right? The tips of that hair? It'd be really hard to see them in the sun or in the sand, right? So those individuals out in the plains, they use this to cast shade. So the hair would cast shade and it would reflect the sun and the heat. It would keep them protected from that. But that's what the porcupine gave to us. And as sharp and pokey as he is, you'll also get a chance to see how soft and caring that he is and the things that he does for our people. Sorry, I get you all moving around. And so, again, this was a gift that was gifted to us from the Lakota people. This wasn't a Great Lakes region type of a headpiece. This would have been worn with feathers on it to provide a visor for shade on both the front and side portions. That's why you'll see those Lakota people, they have those big visors of those eagle feathers that go over it. So you have their shade that's cast by the hair, and also the feathers that cast that also. And in our region, we utilize different headpieces also. You go out into the Badlands and the deserts and the mountainous regions. You can go through the mountains and the deserts with those big headdresses on, those war bonnets. Now, each one of those feathers that those men wore was a kill, was a battle. We had to earn these feathers. It is said that within our spirituality and our culture, our messenger is the eagle. He's the one who flies the highest. He's the one that gets closest to the Creator and who sees farther than any other animal can do so. It is said that the eagle is the one who went and challenged the Creator. Went and challenged the Creator. The Creator was going to flood the world again. We all have heard the story of the first floods and the onset of humanity. And because of all of the ill will towards each other, the Creator was going to flood the earth. And so that happened. And it happened in our spirituality too. But it was going to happen again. And the Creator sent out word that this is coming. Mankind has ruined it again, and I'm sending the waters. And the eagle had heard of this. And the eagle pierced the sky, what we call bidabe, the crack between night and day. Now, in our culture, that's also where our mothers go when their children are born. For that split second, when that mother's spirit goes, so that child's spirit, that's where that soft spot of the baby comes from, and that power comes through, so that it doesn't hurt them. All of our women who have children go to that bidabe, that crack between night and day, that safe spot. And that's where the eagle went. He pierced that, and that's how his head became white. But he was our first fallen warrior who did that. He literally died and gave himself and fell to the earth. The Creator talked to the eagle after the eagle challenged him. He says, you can't do this. Not everybody is doing all of these things. Let me find families. Let me find children, women, elders, people who are still living a good way. And when so, I'll call out to you. So the Creator agreed and blew him back through the crack of night and day. And that's where his white tail comes from. So his white head is what pierced, and it's the breath of the Creator that blew him back through that crack of night and day. Subsequently, us men were supposed to give our wives a white tail feather for each child that is born. So when you see our women with their white feathers, that signifies how many kids they have, how many times they've gone to be done. Again, everything has a story, a purpose, and meaning. And so in doing so, the eagle is our most sacred animal out there because he went on our behalf to the Creator. And the Creator had looked around and watched the eagle doing so. We've seen the movies where the Indians woo, 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 and they're doing all the weird war hoops, right? He didn't really do that. It's not where it comes from. It's not from war, right? That's not something we did. Just like the eagle, when the eagle was flying around looking for those families, looking for those children, looking for those elders who were living in a good way, he told the Creator, I'll call out to you, right? You ever heard an eagle call out? That loud voice, right? Remember, that voice is also our very most sacred thing. It's what gets the attention of our Creator through prayer, through song, through those things. So just like the eagle called out, we do the same thing. So when I go out in the morning to greet the sun in the new day, that's how I do. I call out to the Creator. Use my voice. And that's how that's done. Now, we also use that in time of war. When we would actually have to go to war, the men would surround that whole village. And each man would let out his war whoop. And there would be 300. So that would go, and that would go all the way. So in the movies, they go, woo! The Indians holding a spear and a gun, and nobody's driving the horse, and woo! I don't know how he knew it. It's pretty cool, right? Auto cruise on a horse. That's cool. I look forward to that one day. But those men, they wear those bonnets and those golden eagle feathers that way because they protect our children. Those golden eagles are the virtue protectors, so our children are our most virtuous. So those golden feathers always represent our children and the virtues of our people. So when you see the bald eagle, that's about our spiritual gift and having that ability to go and talk directly to our Creator. Where our golden feathers are about the protection of virtues. So the different animals and the different beings are there for us to learn and teach each other also. I am a father of 3, an uncle and a protector of many. So my turban, when I wear my turban, again, it's made from a bear's paw, a black bear from this region. I was gifted a black bear from a man who had passed now, Mr. Jeff Hodap. He gave me a whole bear to honor my clan, the bear clan, and so I made my turban out of that. And I wear those goldens again so that I show that I understand what a virtue is, that our children are so virtuous, that our elders have that virtue, our women, our men, and those things in creation. And so when we wear our turbans, again, a lot of times for our ceremonial purposes or for our dance purposes, this is how these would be worn. You'll see that I have my chainmail. Again, we believe that as warriors, our eyes are our weakest point. You can see into another person's soul. So that's why we would paint or we would have our chains on here. The items that I made my chains out of are actually made out of wampum to show the wealth of my family, my clan, and my nation. So that's why there's 3 of those, for my family, for my clan, and for my nation. And so again, everything has a story, a purpose, a meaning. And you know what's really cool about the story? You get to create it. I get to create my own story, right? I get to create it, I get to tell it. The Creator put a path and a destiny for me, put people in that path for me, but I get to tell the true story. I get to walk it, I get to live it. And most important, I get to put it together and come and share it, so that maybe some other people will understand how important your story will be to somebody else. If not as important, just as significant, so that they understand that sometimes we need other people to be there to give us the advice, give us the guidance. So with that in mind, I open it up for your questions. If you have any questions, please don't be shy to ask questions. Don't think a question is silly or stupid. The silliest or stupidest question is the one never asked. So, again, I thank you for the opportunity.
How did you learn your language?
Very respectfully. Around grandmas and elders who were taught that our language is the key to our culture and our spirituality. One of the things that I haven't shared a lot about is the adversities that Native people have come to overcome. In 1978, I was 5 years old. How old are you? 4? 4 old? Yep, so just a little bit older than him. I became free in America. In 1978, President Jimmy Carter passed the American Indian Freedom of Religion Act, which gave us the right to speak our language, to pray our own way, to use our tobacco. Those words that I had you say, those Indian words, you would have been removed from your house and put into a boarding school and shipped away from your parents for speaking that language before 1978. So when we learned our language, a lot of times it was in the basement so nobody else could hear, or where we were at ceremony, or we would, a lot of times, places like this, the local church would open up their basement so we could go into their basement and we could pray and we could sing at nighttime, where no lights, nothing was going on, so they didn't draw any attention. This was right up until 1978 that this was still going on. In 1990, they passed the Native Language Act, which gives us funding to speak our language. Under sovereignty criteria, for us to be a sovereign tribe, we have to have a unique and special language, culture, and history. Well, our language, culture, and spirituality was outlawed until 1978. So there was a really big conundrum and hypocrisy that was happening within the federal government. So when we learn our language, it's a lot now. We have classes. So today, the beginner can go and learn their colors, numbers, and basics in clothes, cars, all of those kinds of things. And we have an advanced and an expert level even too. For the Potawatomi dialect, of our nation, there are 3 fluent speakers left on the earth today. Only 3. And they're all over the age of 82. Wow. And so we have classes that our community and other Potawatomi communities are putting together. We had 2 interns just returned home from Wisconsin from those 3 fluent speakers who are now semi-fluent, who can at least think in indigenous thought and speak an indigenous language and have a conversation. They may not be 100% fluent because we consider 100% fluency from when the baby's to the elder, to be able to think and talk the whole way through. So there's a difference in fluency. Thank you for answering and asking that question.
How much do you practice today?
Do I?
Yes.
I actually quite practice a lot. 88% of my community is against traditional spirituality, is against the Madeo way because of colonialization, because of colonization, because of indoctrination from the Jesuit and Catholic and Christian church. A lot of the Abrahamic religions, when they first came here, came in false pretenses, as small groups misrepresenting the entirety, and did a lot of damage within Indian cultures. And then we were forced to take upon the Abrahamic religions. We were forced into the boarding schools in the early 1800s, where the motto was to kill the Indian but save the man. And we're talking about little children. My grandmother died when she was 92 years old 4 years ago. She was put into the boarding school at 4 years of age because her mother and grandmother did not speak English and did not go to Christian or Catholic church. So our children were removed from those types of things. It wasn't until recent years that in social service laws and the removal of children from homes, what we call the Indian Child Welfare Act, they finally removed criteria of alcohol in the home as the ability to remove a child in Indian homes. Not in non-native Indian homes. Non-native Indian homes, you don't have to have electricity, you don't have to have running water, and you can have alcohol in your homes. If you live on a reservation in HUD housing, if you lose your electricity, your children could be removed. If you have alcohol in your home, the children can be removed up until a year ago. So there's different criteria for Native American people. And this is the biggest reason why. I'll tell you the secret. The United States of America has yet to sign the Geneva Convention Act dealing with genocide. It's the only civilized nation to do so. We recently had a country sign the Geneva Convention Act to no longer have genocide in its borders, right? Remember, Germany, right? That guy Hitler, right? And what happened to the Jewish people? They got political prowess, they got a military, they got a whole nation restored to them. Imagine this. Today in America, there are 565 sovereign nations of Indian tribes. There is one sovereign nation, the United States of America, right? So within that one sovereign, you have 565. But there's only one seat at the United Nations for the United States of America. Not a single one for the indigenous people of North America. Until that time happens, where we get that right, then that's when the equality will start to happen. But you can't take away the United States of America from world economy, can you? It would fall. We have set up the world's economy on what we are doing here. And if we take that away through the Geneva Conventions and the genocidal policies, Indian people aren't ready for that responsibility. We haven't had the length of time to run our nations and heal from the genocidal policies of this nation. That's kind of why nobody wants to talk about it, and it's way, way in the back, right? Because it's big. It's really big. The doctrine of discovery is the document that the Spanish, that the French, and the British used, saying that the papal mole's message was to God, gold, and land. Go out and find those things, but only for uncivilized people. So they had to make us look uncivilized. Oh, they don't have a language. Oh, they run around naked. Oh, they have nothing to do with their kids. Probably not. The Constitution of the United States of America is word for word written after the Iroquois Confederacy's Great Law of Peace. Our United States of American government has acknowledged that. Hatsunari, we the people, starts off with the very same. The only thing that it leaves out is the role of the women, elder, and children. Right? That's a lot.
Where's your mom and your dad?
My mom was born right here in Mishawaka. My dad was born in Texas, but has grown up in Niles, South Bend, Wajak area. My mom now lives in Oregon. My dad lives in